how much of that is my personal ambition versus that call to leadership.
What benefits do you get out of the gym?
And so we want to answer the question, who am I? What's important to me, and where am I going?
I think that there's a fear of guys getting in shape. Drew, are you feeling epic today?
Larry, I'm feeling very epic, man. Yeah,
That's
I just got
good.
done baking 2 loaves of sourdough bread before I came down here, so very epic.
Oh, dude, my assistant Jamie makes sourdough, and she does it like every day.
Yeah.
And she came over to our house for a holiday dinner, and she brought like one that like literally like a loaf she had just taken out of the oven like an hour before she got to our house. And I was like, this is the best bread I've ever had.
Dude, it's incredible, man. I've been on the sourdough train for 2 weeks, so I'm very new. My brother-in-law kind of got into it about a year ago, and we were coming up on the holidays, and my wife's like, "Why don't you learn how to make some? So we can give it out as gifts for Christmas or whatever." And I think in the last 2 weeks, I'm on loaf like I'll probably have 7 or 8 done tomorrow. So I'm fully into it, man.
Are we gonna find sourdough loaves of bread on the Epic Dad shop
We might
at some point?
yeah.
This sourdough loaf is loaded with pre-workout. This
some
sourdough loaf
creatine
is got creatine and bone broth in it. It's protein sourdough.
That's actually a great idea, man. Yeah, creatine infused sourdough
Oh
bread.
my God, can you imagine? Like, dude, the gym bros would go nuts. Like, I'm just eating bread for every meal. What is the advantages of sourdough? I know it's got I know it tastes amazing, and that's the advantage. But
I
know it's got a lot of other good ones.
Yeah, like my kids, as much as we preach like health and wellness with Epic Dad Company, like my kids are just like kids, right? And so like they're eating chicken nuggets and peanut butter jelly sandwiches, and like I try to get them to eat well, but at the end of the day, they're kids.
I'm sorry, but owning the Epic Dad, we're gonna have to kick you off as a guest right now. If your kids are not eating 7 eggs, an avocado, and then a 16-ounce steak at every meal, you shouldn't be allowed on the show.
Yeah, no, I mean, kids are kids, man, and they eat so much just junk that I was like, hey, if they're gonna have 3 peanut butter jelly sandwiches a day, like at least we can maybe have some good bread to go along with it, that's not like full of chemicals and artificial ingredients and preservatives. So that was kind of my thought around it. So I'd say, it tastes amazing. But then it's just natural kind of homemade bread, so you don't have to worry about all that garbage in it.
But like the bacteria in it, right? Like the positive, it's good. This is all kind of new to me again, but is it good for like gut health and that kind of thing? Or like what is it actually good for?
Yeah. I'm probably not the one to go to for sourdough, expertise, but, my assumption I'm brand new, 2 weeks in. But yeah, assumption is, I would think the bacteria is good for you. That's my thought, at least. It tastes good.
I know. I'm just like, it's so good. I don't care. Yum, yum. So, but anyway, I want you to share your story, man. You're a combat vet. You're a dad of 3. You own this amazing company called the Epic TEDCO. But yeah, I would love for you to start with, to be honest, I'd love for you to start how you grew up.
Yeah, man. So first off, so I'm a husband, dad of 3. I've got 2 girls and a little boy. Started this company, the Epic Dad Company, about 3 years ago. Actually, right when we first met at that event that we were talking about, previously, was kind of when the concept of the Epic Dad Company just got started. Growing up, I grew up in Georgia, just a little bit north of Atlanta. To some great parents, absolutely incredible parents, and one older sister, just a kind of normal childhood, right? We went and stayed out until the streetlights came on. When it got dark, came back, and my parents, like I said, were incredible parents. They were extremely busy. I think with a lot of folks kind of growing up in our generation, we kind of did our own thing, right? Our parents were there, but most of the time they were working to put food on the table and create a good life for us. That was kind of growing up for me. Good relationship with my father. But I actually got the opportunity to go play baseball in college. So I went down to Valdosta State University, went to play baseball, met my wife in college, Megan. We've been married 14 years this year. And then I joined the Army. So right after the military, I knew I was going to go, right after college, I knew I was going to go in the military. So I did 4 years active duty, did a combat deployment in Afghanistan, got back and just started working in the corporate world, man. And we can kind of dive into that and all the things that really made me want to start the Epitad company. It was kind of along that journey, but I'd say pretty standard childhood. Was around entrepreneurship with my dad owning his own business. But yeah, pretty standard, man.
What was it in you that you wanted to join the military?
That's a great question. So I kind of knew early on that I wanted to do it. Nobody in my family had really done it. Both my grandparents fought in World War II, but no real immediate family that was in the military. But I think just kind of growing up, like just watching movies, watching Band of Brothers, to be honest with you, just kind of wanting that adventure. What was a big part of it. And then when September 11th happened, that kind of cemented it for me. I was in ninth grade. I remember very vividly. I was in ninth grade health class, and we'd heard the first plane went to the tower. And I don't remember this story. My mother tells me this story, is that when she picked me up from school that day, because I wasn't even able to drive, I asked her, how old do you have to be to join the military? And she said, you have to be 21. Is what she said. So I gave her that much. I didn't join until after college, so I was actually 22. So I actually gave her a year. But I think I kind of always knew I was going to do it, to be honest with you, Larry. And the September 11th was really just the, kind of the nail in the coffin to say, like, yes, this is 100% sure. I'm going to join.
What was it in you about September 11th because I think a lot of us saw September 11th, but not all of us felt that call to do that.
Yeah. Well, I've always felt, that God gives people natural gifts and abilities. And mine, whether I want to lean into it or shy away from it, at times is leadership. Is my God-given ability. And so with that, being able to go into the military to inspire others to do great things was just always kind of a calling for me. So I was, a catcher, my entire life growing up, which is the catcher's kind of the quarterback of the team, right? And you're kind of calling plays, you're letting the pitcher know what to do. You're that leader, that captain of the team. And so when September 11th happened, that was kind of just my calling to go do something greater, to go have an adventure and to go step into that leadership role, I think.
I love that, man. It really came out of something very, very selfless for you, is what I'm hearing. Like just leadership and then, leading others. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say yes to a certain extent, but then also kind of later on in life, you can look back and turn the page a little bit and say maybe there was a little bit of selfish action in there as well. And I say this because I have struggled. So I'm still in the military. I'm in the National Guard. So I did 4 years active duty. I've been in the National Guard for 7 years. And, part of me wants to continue, for forever, right? But you kind of have to balance what is that kind of selfish call to see what you're made of, to see what you're capable of, and kind of tapering that with what are your other responsibilities, as far as your family, your corporate career, your faith. And so there's a lot of things kind of pulling you in different directions. And so, part of me now, like current state where I'm at in the military, part of me is saying, hey, let's go do all these cool schools. Let's go continue, to get more badges and more rank. But you have to look at that from another perspective and say, okay, how much of that is my ambition, my personal ambition, versus that call to leadership? So I think there's two sides to every coin. I would say yes, for sure. Part of that was selfless, but part of it too was just to see what I'm made of, right? Like to go have an adventure, have a challenge, and see what I'm made of.
Kind of reminds me of John Eldridge, and his three needs for men. I'm sure you're probably familiar with that, which is, adventure to be had, a battle to fight, and a beauty to rescue.
Yeah.
And for you, it sounds like maybe two of those needs are being met, obviously, in the military. But I love that, man. What did the military teach you just about leadership in general? And going into the military at 22 years old, were you one of the older guys, like in your basic training?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
So I was considered the old man at 22 and in basic training, Yeah, but I'd say on the leadership front, it's going to teach you a lot, right? I mean, most of us haven't had the opportunity to be thrust into an environment like that. I mean, yes, maybe we played sports and we've been in stressful environments, but your leadership capability is definitely tested to its core inside the military, and especially on a combat deployment. One of the first things I learned coming into the military around leadership, I was going to tell you a funny story. So I came in at 22 with a college degree, and I went enlisted instead of commissioned, which is a little bit weird. Most guys, they graduate with a degree, they go and become an officer. So I went in on the enlisted route. And the reason behind that, Larry, it wasn't really I say it's by choice, yes, but ultimately it was just that I wanted to get in the pipeline as fast as possible. So I graduated. I went down to the recruiter's office, said, hey, I want to go to officer candidate school. Let's do this thing. And this was kind of during the surge of Obama's years, that 2009, 2010 timeframe. And so there was plenty of officers in the pipeline. And so for me to get a slot to basic training, then go to officer candidate school, then go to my basic officer leadership course was going to take a year and a half before I was able to start that pipeline. And I said, I just want to go now, right? Like, I'm ready. Let's do this thing. And so I chose to go enlisted. And so with that, when I graduated, I went to airborne school for 3 weeks and got assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division. So here I am, this fresh specialist college degree with no combat experience, coming into my first unit, and they are just rotating back from a deployment to Afghanistan in 2010. And it was a very rough deployment for these guys. So I don't know total number of casualties, but they lost quite a few folks in our battalion. So I come into role. They're just getting back from deployment. And initially, I was assigned as a 50 cal gunner. So we were a mounted company within an infantry battalion. So I was a 50 cal gunner initially for about 2 months. And they very quickly, my leadership noticed that, hey, this guy's not like a typical kind of E1 coming straight from high school. Like, he's got experience in college. He's got experience in leadership with playing baseball in college. And so they placed me into a team leader role. So a team leader, you're basically in charge of 4 guys. You have a fire team. And so here I am, 22 years old. I've been in the military a total of about 6 months, I think. And I get put in charge of these combat-hardened veterans, right, on my fire team. And so that was the kind of first test of leadership for me in the military. It was like, okay, you don't have any experience, and you are expected to lead these people. So what are you going to do? And I learned very, very quickly there that the best way to lead is to lead by example, right? I'm not going to ask my guys to do anything that I am not willing to do and capable of doing. And so that meant, hey, I'm going to clean the shitters, right? I'm going to be the first one in the morning to show up at PT. I'm going to make sure that nobody can out-PT me, right? Physical fitness. And just go above and beyond to show my guys, like, I am there. I'm operating at the highest standard. And the funny story was kind of how I got accepted, so to speak, right, with my team and then with my squad, was they would always what's called CIB check me. So combat infantry badge is what you get when you're on a deployment overseas and you're infantry and you're engaged in direct combat. And so the guys I was in charge of had one of those on their chest, right? And here I am, I don't have one of those. And so they would always CIB check me. They'd be like, hey, let me see your CIB, right? And so I didn't have one at the time. And so finally I got, pretty pissed off at it, being in this leadership role for 2 or 3 months now and getting CIB checked. So I kind of pulled a fast one on my team and my squad and said, hey, let's do a diploma check, right? And so I whipped out my college diploma. I was like, how many of you fuckers have one of these?
Oh my God.
And so, yeah, and at that point on, it was like, okay, cool. Like, Camp is one of us. Like, he may not have the combat experience, but he has got the leadership capacity to be in charge of us. So I think that was the biggest lesson for me, was like, you're gonna get put in roles you're uncomfortable with, and like the best way that you can earn that respect is to lead by example.
Mm-hmm. Man, how old were the guys in this crew, even though they were combat vets?
Yeah, I mean, some were. So some were 18, 19, 20 years old. So some of them were probably 25, 26. Just kind of a spattering and mixture of ages.
Wow, that's really cool. And then what was it like leading them after that?
After that, it was fine. So I think it's, you can equate the Army to kind of like being in prison, I think, in probably more ways than one. And they always say in prison, right? Your first day in prison, like, find the biggest guy and just go up and just punch him in the face, and it's kind of like establishing that like alpha mentality. I mean, it's kind of same thing, right? I mean, I came in on this new guy and like, I've got to show that like I've got what it takes. And so, like I said, a lot of that was just, leading by example, doing more than what's expected of me. But really, I think the big thing was physical fitness. And so if I was asking them to do a workout and I'm coming in last place, like I'm never going to earn their respect. Right. And so these guys are in pretty good shape in the military. But if I'm able to say, hey guys, we're going for a 5-mile run this morning and I smoke all of them by like 3 minutes, I think that just lends credibility right there.
I would definitely say so. Was physical fitness something that, I mean, obviously you were an athlete growing up, you were a catcher and that kind of thing, but was physical fitness always a part of your life growing up?
I'd say it was always a part of my life, but really started to take it seriously in college. In high school, we'd go to weight training class and stuff like this, right? But I didn't really know what I was doing. In college, baseball and sports in general become more of a business than it is fun. And so you're always having to make those deposits and investments, into your physical training. And a lot of that happens in the weight room. So at college, that's really where I learned like the fundamentals of, what does it look like to strength train? What does it look like to do endurance training? And then after college, man, I was hooked. I don't think I've strayed away from the gym, more than a week at any point in time since college. And it's kind of always just been part of my life.
What benefits do you get out of the gym? Being a dad of 3, being married. Yeah.
Dude, where can we start?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, a big benefit is going to be just physical health, right? Is, hey, the better in shape I am, like the more energy I'm going to have for my family, right? The more energy I'm going to have for my job, the more energy I'm going to have for my faith community. And so that's kind of step one. It's like the healthier you are, right, the more energy you're going to have. Number 2 is longevity, right? And so being a dad of 3, like, yes, I'm looking now at the present, but like also I want to be around for a long time. I want to be able to walk my children down the aisle. And if I'm unhealthy, I'm not going to do that. But I honestly, Larry, I think the biggest benefit is mentally. And that may be the same for you. I'd love to hear, because I know you're into working out as well. But like for me, the mental clarity I get by being on some type of plan, staying disciplined to that plan, and having like a goal that I'm going to achieve helps me in those other areas in having more energy and having more focus. So, it's definitely physically, it's definitely longevity, but then really mentally for me, it helps kind of me stay sharp.
Yeah, I've said a lot on this podcast that even if I no longer got physical benefits from training, I would still do it because the mental game is so beneficial. I couldn't agree more, and I'll even say, like, even in this season, you and I we're doing this interview right before Christmas, and I'll tell you, man, like, mentally this season is insanely difficult for me. Like I definitely struggle through seasonal anxiety, and I think a lot of that just, quite frankly, it just has to do with like low vitamin D, not getting the sunlight I usually get, that kind of thing. I don't really thrive in like, colder seasons. Like I like being outside. I like being active, like every single day I possibly can. It really helps my mental health. And so like in this particular season, like the gym becomes insanely more important. It's always important every single day and every single week. But in this season, it's easiest for me to make excuses, but usually I never go down that road. Like this morning, it took everything I had to go, but I'm like, if I don't go, I'm going to feel terrible the entire day, and I'm not willing to pay that price. Zero. Even if I go in and I have a crappy workout, I'm going to go in. I'll elevate my mental game. No questions asked. Right. But yeah, that's what it is for me, which I imagine, I think I know why, but like, I think a lot of guys will put their health on the back burner. And I heard this one statement, and I want to get your take on this. I have a one-on-one client right now, and he's been a client of mine for months. And he said something to me that you learn something, obviously, not from your clients as well, which I love doing. And he said something, he's like, without my self-care, it's a lot like not having money. I'm like, what do you mean by that? He's like, well, think about it. He goes, if your kid comes to you and they ask for $2 and you have $1, you have to go get the other dollar from somewhere, right? You either got to go make it or you've got to go get it, but you don't have it on you. You got to go get it. He's like, our emotional and mental capacity to be a good dad is a lot like money. If you there are some days you just don't have any left. I don't care. And by the way, this one-on-one client of mine, he's a licensed family therapist. So it's really fascinating to be coaching a licensed family therapist through stuff like this. But like, he's great because we go back and forth on lessons. But one of the things he says is like, that's one of the biggest missing ingredients is that a lot of dudes want to be like, well, I'll just give it to him. Well, I'll just find a way to do it, which is, you can applaud that, but it is not possible. Like there are limits that a human being will get to. And like, I don't have any more to give. In order for me to give it, I have to go get it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would venture to say all, like maybe most, but probably all, I would say the dads have the best intentions, right?
Sure.
Hey, we want to show up for our kids. We want to lead them. We want to give them, the right lessons and teach them the right values and things like that. Like I would venture to say every single dad on the planet wants to do that. But there are a huge number of dads that want to give, and they don't do any taking. And so we've always heard the phrase, when you're on a plane and they're giving the little talk, right? The stewardesses and flight attendants say, hey, if the plane's going down, the oxygen mask is going to come down. And what are you supposed to do, Larry?
Put it on first, and then
Actually,
I put it on my kid first, pass out, and I'm just like, you know what? This will be the best flight ever. I'll get some sleep.
Right? Yeah. I mean, we all know the saying, right? It's we need to put our own mask on first before we help others. And yet so many dads don't do that when it comes to their health and wellness. And so, you cannot, as a dad, perfect to that example, right? Is if you only have $1, your kid asks for $2, you just don't have it. And so we have to take the time necessary to pour into ourselves first before we can go show up for our family and be the best that we can. Because if we're not, then yes, we may have the best intentions and we may be showing up for them, right? But we're not at full capacity. We're not. And so that is why, a huge part of kind of my routine, the guys inside of our community, our routine, it really starts in the morning. And that is, you need to put yourself first in the morning before your family even wakes up. And you need to do the work to pour into your bucket so that when they are up, you can go pour into them from a full cup and you're not at half capacity, if that makes sense. So 100% agree. Like, yeah, it's the best intentions. No dad wants to give 50% effort, but if we're not pouring into ourselves and filling that bucket, then we are naturally going to we're going to give less than we're capable of.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to go out on a limb here, okay? I have found on days that, and I found this with other dudes too, on days where I'm like, no, I got it. I can do it. Because no dude ever wants to say like, I need to go get this dollar. We all want to be the guy to be like, no, I got it. And I got it. And even if I have to like make the dollar out of Monopoly money, I'm going to give it to you right here and now. Right? We want to do that. But I have found, Drew, that on days that I try to make that dollar, but I'm not, in other words, I'm not making it, I'm just trying to grind my way through it, it backfires on me. It doesn't turn out usually well.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. We can try to manufacture, effort, try to manufacture intention, but I think unless it's real, it's going to come off probably different than what you want to. So, like I said, that's why it's so big, I think, for guys inside our community is we really focus on the morning and some basic habits and routines, right, that are going to set you up so that you do have that dollar. You're not trying to manufacture it on the spot, that you do have the mental, the relational bandwidth capacity to go pour into your family full time.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And there are some times, man, like yesterday was a perfect example. Yesterday, you ever have like those moments where like, this is a really dumb question, Drew. Those moments where you've said something for your kids to do like 20 freaking times, 20 times, 20 times, right? Like, it's just like, oh my God, if I could add up all the times I've told you to pick up your shoes, to not leave, your laundry baskets completely all over the place, to actually clean your bathroom, to not have trash on the floor, like literally behind your toilet, because you don't want to pick up the trash that fell out of the trash can because it was too full and you just like let it go behind the toilet. Like I literally like had like this moment with my kids yesterday, and I was like, I'm going to kill all of you. Like, and I caused like a scene, and my wife was like, whoa. I'm like, and this is what I told my wife. I was like, look, she's like, why are you being like so hard on them about this? And I'm like, and I looked at her and I go, I was like, this is what I told my wife, right, wrong, or indifferent. I was like, look, I have standards for our kids. I'm pretty sure you share the same standards, but these are my standards and I'm not deviating on them. Like, I don't hold my kids to the fire to be straight A students. There are a lot of people out there that do that. A lot of parents are like, no, you get a 4.0. Like my son's girlfriend, her parents are like that. Like, you have a 4.0. Like, you have straight A's. We're not paying for college. You're getting a college scholarship. Like, I don't do that. I don't hold that standard of my kids. My standard with school with the kids are, you put your best effort forward. You work hard, right? You learn how to work hard. Like, it's all about the work that they put in, the lessons that they learned. Grades are going to fall where they're going to fall. Now, granted, I don't want my kids to flunk out, but a C or better for my kids is fine as long as they're working their ass off. So that's the standard. But for like being a good human being who picks up after themselves, who does their laundry, who doesn't do shortcuts, doesn't leave their stuff everywhere for somebody else to clean up. Like, that's a standard that I'm willing to absolutely hold. And I kind of like lost it a little bit on my family yesterday. And I was like, look, this needs to be a standard, because these kids are going to have their own family. They're going over to other people's houses. I don't want them to think that this is okay. And my wife looked at me. She's like, I agree with you. Why don't you go to the gym for 45 minutes? This is where my wife really knows me. And I was like, and I looked at her. I go, I don't need to go to the gym. And she goes, I bet you want to. You haven't been yet today. You would probably feel a lot better if you went. And I was like, I'll go. And I came home and she's like, how do you feel? And I was like, I feel night and day better. She's better. Like, yeah, you do. She's like, please work out every day for us, will you? Like,
yeah, dude. I mean, that's the other thing too, right? Is like, the gym is not therapy. It's not like, but it is an outlet and it's a release, where you can go get some of that stress out and freaking pick up an iron bar and lift it over your head 10 or 12 times and just get that like masculine energy out. Is another massive benefit.
Can we talk about that real quick?
Yeah, dude.
I don't mean to cut you off, but
no.
I really want to talk about this because it's something that I have really been embracing for the past few months, and I've never quite experienced it. Like, dude, when I get in the gym, it's almost like I'm like in there with some anger.
Yeah, dude.
But it's like
those are the best workouts.
It is, but it's not negative anger. If that makes any sense, I don't know if it does. It's almost like I'm going to test. This is not a workout. This is an experience. I'm going to test myself hard. Right. Yeah. And it's like, once I get through that experience, it's not I think a workout and training is different. I think a workout is something you throw around the weights. Training, that's an experience. And I like experiences, but yeah, I think there's something too. I want to get your opinion. What is it about like this masculine energy and the release of that masculine energy? I don't know what it is, but I'd love for you to share what you think it is.
Yeah, I mean, let's just compare our lives current day, right, in 2024 to what did our lives look like, let's even just say 300 years ago.
Good
right?
point. Yep.
And so, I mean, 300 years ago, right, we're waking up at the freaking buck crack of dawn, we're going out, we're tilling the plow, I mean, going back even further, we're having to go on hunts and provide for our family and things like that, right? And now you look at what we're doing, and hey, most men aren't on some type of training regimen, aren't on some type of workout program, and so they wake up, they probably hit their snooze button on their alarm 3 or 4 times and wake up and shower real quick and go to work and sit at a freaking office for 8 hours. They come home, they hang out with their kids for 20 minutes, they throw on Netflix, they drink a beer, and then they go to sleep and do it all over again, right? And so there is no release in any part of that structure. And us as men, like we absolutely need that, right? Like we are wired differently than women, and we have masculinity. We have, this masculine energy that needs to get out. And if it doesn't get out in the gym, it's still going to get out, right? It's going to get out in other areas. It's going to get out in the vices that you have in life, right? And saying, hey, I'm going to go watch porn, or I'm going to go drink alcohol, or I'm going to yell at my kids. Like, it's going to get out that masculine energy. And so us, like, what we have to do is channel that in a healthy way. And one of the best ways to do that is through working out through a structured training program, to where you have that positive release of that masculine energy, because again, we all have it, and it's going to get out in some one way or the other. And the best thing we can do is channel that in a positive direction.
I think there's a lot to be said to that. Like, what do you think if more guys were willing to exercise? Mm-hmm. Like, what do you think? And now, granted, like, I'll tell you, man, like, I right now the gym it's really surprising, because I'm talking to you before like January 1st. I'm not even going to want to set foot in my gym in January 1st, but I see people who I can tell are probably new to the gym, you know, and I see people like trying, you know, moving their bodies, which I'm just like, dude, heck yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like, welcome to the place where you can like leave all your problems, right? And go through hard things and feel better on the way out. However, I remember, so like a year ago, I hurt my knee really bad, and I kind of had to start over. Like, I gained a lot of weight. I couldn't do a lot of stuff. And I'll tell you, I was really served a slice of humble pie of like how hard workouts are when you've neglected your body for a while. Cause like I couldn't do a whole lot of training, especially not with my legs. And workouts were not nearly as enjoyable. But I got small things out of it. Not the big ones that I normally get, but the small ones. But like, what do you think are the first like hits that guys get, like the first positive hits that they get when they walk into a gym and they start training, or they start eating healthy, or they start taking the right supplements like you guys have, and to where like they start to feel like they're on a better course?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, yes, there are a lot of long-term benefits to working out, to being into fitness, and we already talked about some of those, right? Is like actually being physically healthy, your longevity. But when you're just getting started, I think one of the things that people will notice is you start to build momentum, right? Like, even if your workouts aren't the best workouts, and let's say you weigh 400 pounds, right? And you're like, all right, enough is enough. I'm going to start getting healthy. And like your workout is going to look a lot different than a guy that's been doing CrossFit for 15 years, right? Like, it's going to be vastly different. However, one thing that you will notice is that ting of momentum, that ting of confidence by you doing hard things every day, right? And so, if you have it on your calendar to go work out and you go do it, you check that box. That's one thing that you did that day that was hard, that you probably didn't want to do. And then you go do that again tomorrow, and you go do that again the next day. And what starts to happen is you get this flywheel of positive momentum in your life, right? And you start to build confidence. You start to build competence over time, that you know what workouts to do, and then you start to see results. So I think, like, even if you're not seeing results in the gym, like, let's say you're just on some random workout program, and you haven't really given it any thought. You're just like, I'm just going to go for a run today and do this tomorrow or whatever. Like, as long as you are doing something hard every day and you're committing yourself to actually go do it, and you're disciplined enough to go do it, like, you will see positive benefits. Like, mentally, you'll see it positive in your confidence that you have showing up, even if you're not getting like amazing results. And so that's what I would say is like the confidence that you build in being disciplined and like proving to yourself that you can do something you don't want to do is like tantamount. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. Yeah. And I think that's really, really good news for people who haven't been there for a while, or maybe they haven't prioritized their health for a while. In fact, I think if you haven't done it for a while, you kind of look at it as like, I don't want to do that. Like, it's almost been too long. Like, I don't want to go back in there. And I think the gym too can be really intimidating for people. I remember the first time I joined one when I was a teenager, and I was like, oh my God, like, there's some really scary people in here. But what's really funny is some of the nicest people I've met in the world are in fitness. Like, some of the most beautifully built women are like some of the kindest. Some of the dudes that look the scariest are the nicest. And it's like, I think, and any time I've ever asked for help in the gym, I'm like, yeah, man, no problem. Like, I got you. Like, anytime I need a spot or anything like that, even if like someone's distracted with their AirPods in or they look intimidating or unapproachable, like, hey, man, would you mind helping me real quick? And people are like, yeah. Like, I don't think I've ever had anybody like, no, you're fat and I'm big, so get out of my space.
Yeah, I mean, there may be a few in there, but
Yeah.
no, man. I mean, everybody's on the same type of journey, right? Like, we're all in different spots along that road, but like, we're all on the same path, right? Which is, I want to better myself, right? And so, yeah, if somebody's further along and somebody, you know, down here asks for help, like, of course they're gonna be willing to help. You're on the exact same journey. They can show a little bit of the way to get further along. So yeah, I mean, it's been my experience too, man. Some of the scariest, you know, tattooed, bearded, you know, dudes in the gym, like, are the nicest ones I've ever met in my life.
I hear you, man. I know one of the topics we're going to talk about is, you know, how to go from somebody who hasn't really focused on their health for a while. I want to talk about depression. You know, I want to even talk about someone who self-identifies as, well, I'm depressed and I'm lazy. There's a lot of guys out there that are just like, and like, I don't know what it is, but it's just like, I've had guys who've asked me like for fitness help in the past, and they'll say something about themselves, or like, I'm just the fat dad. And I'm like, why would you say that about yourself? Or they'll be like, I'm just embracing the dad bod. And I'm like, but do you like it? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, well, why embrace it then? You know, you don't have to like it. In fact, your distaste of it might be the thing that motivates you to do it, right? And there's one other element here that I want to talk about that I don't think we're not talking about, which is I think that there's a fear of guys getting in shape. I know it sounds really odd, but here's what I mean by that. If I'm an in shape dad, does that mean I'm self-centered? I'm selfish. It's all about me. It's not about my kids. What the hell's like, what is wrong with me? Like, how do I even, you know, be okay with taking care of myself? Like, shouldn't I be taking care of everybody else? And we think that that's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that mindset shift that we talked about earlier, right? Is you have the right intention as a dad. Like, you want to show up in the best way you can for your family, and yeah, but what you fail to understand is that by you prioritizing everyone else first, is that you're not showing up 100%. So we have this email sequence. If you guys have joined our Epic Dad challenge, it's like a free 7-day challenge. You guys will see it. And like, one thing that we always put on there is, dads always want to show up 100% of the time, but they only show up at 60% capacity, right? And so what we want to do is flip that ratio and say, hey, I'm going to show up. I'm going to be there 60% of the time, maybe, right? Like I may not be there all the time, but when I am there, I'm going to be 100%. And so, like, if you were to ask any wife, any mother, you know, hey, if your husband traded an hour of the day to go to the gym, and he's going to show up and exponentially have more energy, have more focus, have more attention, like, she's going to make that trade every day of the week, right? And then there's also the flip side of that, Larry, is that we think, you know, as dads, like, if we want to get in shape, oh man, you know, it's going to take me 3 hours a day, every day of the week, etc. And so, you know, we become dads, but we haven't really changed our approach to fitness, and we still are thinking the old way that, like, I need to be doing curls for the girls, you know, in front of the mirror for 3 hours a day to get in shape. And like, that's not the case at all. Like, we've got to shift the way we think about fitness now that we are a dad. Yeah.
I love that, man. Are you saying 60% of the time it works every time?
Every time. It's science.
I love how you just like, you just went right there.
Dude, that's my favorite movie of all time. I could quote that for just days, man.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah, like, that was like, you know, it's really funny. I know we're kind of like squirreling here, but like, so as we're recording this, my 16-year-old is almost 17. And when he was a year old, he was just one. Maybe he was like 15 months old. He was like literally in his high chair. And I had this thing on my BlackBerry. iPhones weren't even, iPhones were out, but I still had a BlackBerry. And I had this recording on my BlackBerry, and it was Ron Burgundy going, "I look good. Really good." And somehow, dude, like, we had heard that so many times that we had trained Mason at the time. He was only 15 months old, that when he heard that music, he'd be like, "I look good. I mean, really good." And he would just do it as his baby. I got his video of him doing it. And it just is so damn funny, man. But
Dude,
yeah,
don't even get me
literally,
started on like kids repeating
yeah,
stuff that we said. Yeah, so we're big Will Ferrell fans in my
yeah,
house.
yeah.
Before memes, before we used to like just share memes with each other. That's all we would do is just quote Anchorman back and forth to each other. But yeah, I'm the worst about that. My two daughters, they know Will Ferrell like the back of their hand, and they'll just quote just randomly from him, right? Like the other night, we were making something, the moon got mentioned. I don't know where, but my 8-year-old goes, "Hey, Dad, if the moon was made of spare ribs, would you eat it?" And that was just like the old SNL
Yes.
skit. I
Yeah.
was like, "I love you so much. I've never been more proud."
Oh yeah. And suddenly I'm hungry for spare ribs. I don't care if they're on the moon or not. I'm gonna go get them. Talk to me a little bit about your community and about accountability as well.
Yeah. So I launched the company in 2021. And initially we wanted to be a supplement company, which it is still, right? Like that's kind of our bread and butter. That's what we make is 100% natural supplements to help dads get in the gym and stay in the gym. But our mission, Larry, is a lot bigger than just like we want you to go to the gym. Our mission is to change the culture. And we think we can do that by having better dads. And so, you know the stats as well as anybody does. I won't, go through every statistic, but it's very obvious that we have a fatherlessness epidemic in our country. And that is really the root cause to all of these things around drug use, around poverty. And so that ultimately that is our mission, is to change some of those statistics. And we think that in order to do that, dads need to step up and lead. And so naturally, because our mission is so big, we have done a lot of things outside of just supplements. So we do make like the best supplements in the industry. However, we've really built a massive and just amazing community. We built a podcast. We have all types of content. We now have an online fitness program. Really, like, we want to have all the tools and resources you need to go from that moment where you look in the mirror and you say, like, shit, what happened? I want to make some changes. Like, we want to be able to give you everything you need to make that change. And so one thing that we have developed over the last couple of years is what we call the Epic Dad Framework. And so this is really going from, hey, I am that dad that looks in the mirror. I don't like what I see. I know I'm not showing up with intention or energy, and I'm just not setting the example that I want to be for my kids. So we kind of take them from there all the way to the end of 6 pillars, to where you are intentional. You are putting forth the effort. You may not have a 6-pack, yet, right? But you're on the path. And fitness and health is a huge priority for you. And what we found really is that the first couple pillars are key to driving success and driving change, like lasting change. And so the first 2 pillars, we call them identity, values, and vision. Identity, values is pillar 1. And Larry, ultimately they're meant to answer 3 questions that we probably think a lot about as dads, but we've never really put the pen to paper, and we've never really had a framework around it. And so we want to answer the question, who am I, what's important to me, and where am I going? And that's going to give us clarity, extreme clarity around who we are as a person, what's important to us, and then ultimately where we want to go. And so what we do is we walk guys through a few exercises. One is to craft what's called their identity statement. And this really, is a turning point for a lot of guys, because again, we think about this stuff all the time, but we don't really write it down on paper. And just the simple act of writing that down on paper, reinforcing that on a daily basis, is going to help you show up as the person you want to be, right? That you said you want to be. And so just that identity statement has been transformational for our community. The second thing is values. And so we help guys get really clear on their personal values, what's important to them, like what hills are they going to die on. And then secondly is family values, like what is your family going to value, right? It's not just you, it's you are the leader of the home. So you need to craft those values in alignment with your family. And then 3 is just getting really clear on, like, okay, I'm not where I want to be right now. Where do I want to be, right? Like, what does that life look like 2 or 3 years down the road? And so we help guys get very, very detailed around that, of like, hey, this is where I want to live. This is what I want to be doing. This is what my kids are doing. This is how I want to show up for my kids. This is the impact I want to be creating in the world. And so that creates that vision, right? So now we know who we are, we know what's important to us, and we know where we're going. And then kind of the back end of that framework is the tactical stuff, which is the mission, which is like, okay, that's my vision. How do I actually break that down into goals and what we call the BRMF framework? It's the Be Real Motherfucker framework. It's just body, relationships, mind, and finances. And so you take that vision, that pie in the sky vision, and you say, okay, what are goals that I can set over the next 90 days in my body, my relationships, my mind, and my finances that are going to get me closer to that vision? So that's your goals. And then next, very, very tactical, is we call it wins. So these are just daily wins or daily habits. And so you look at the vision, you look at your mission, and you say, okay, now on a day-by-day basis, what do I need to do, right? And what do I need to keep myself disciplined and accountable to? For guys inside of our community, we're pretty prescriptive with habits. Like they can always add on more if they want to. But our daily habits are really simple, man. And it's for two reasons. One is we're all going to have ups and downs. We're all going to have bad days, right, as dads. But we want to keep those bad days from turning into a bad 2 days or a bad 3 days or a bad week or a bad month. And so they act as guardrails, as like left and right limits. So some of our habits, again, super simple, but it's like we never hit the snooze button ever. If we make a commitment, we are getting up when we say we're going to get up. 2 is just hydrate in the morning, right? 3 is we're going to connect with that identity statement that we make every single morning. 4 is we're going to get 10,000 steps every single day. And so it's just like little things that they don't look like a lot in one day. And frankly, they're not. Like we're not asking too much, but you start to stack those daily wins like over and over and over and over and over and over. And then you look back, 2 months from now, and like you have just made substantial progress towards your goals. And so that's what that looks like. The last 2 pillars are just around accountability and community, which is stuff that we provide for guys inside of our community. But it's really, hey, you are going to be accountable to someone other than yourself more than you will be accountable to yourself. Right? They did a study, Larry, it's funny to bring this up.
Exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, they did a study about pet owners.
And never mind. I thought you were going somewhere else.
Okay, this is a good one. And I'm probably going to butcher like the actual statistics, so we can link it and look it up. But they had a number of pet owners in the study, and they asked their pet owners to give them their pets a prescription, like over the 2 months or whatever. And then they also asked them, that they needed to go fill a prescription for themselves and take it, the same cadence month over month. And what they found was they were much more likely to make sure their pets were taking the medication than they were themselves. And so it just shows that, like, okay, if we have somebody that we're being held accountable to and trying to hold us to a higher standard, like we are going to take action a lot more than we would on our own. So that's accountability in the community. Again, you look at our lives now versus where we were at, even 50 years ago, is like men operated in LGOPs, like little groups of paratroopers. We operated in tribes. And so like you've got to have those guys you can lean on, when you want to talk through something, or those guys that are going to push you, right, and hold you accountable to a higher standard. And so like all together, it's identity, values, vision, mission, wins, accountability, and community. And so by implementing this EpiDad framework, like we just helped, I don't know how many guys like go, like I said, from that moment of clarity when they're looking in the mirror and saying something has to change, like I just can't keep doing what I'm doing. We give them that framework to get to where they want to go.
That's really good. I thought actually you were going to quote the study that was done by the American Society of Training and Development. Are you familiar with that one?
I don't know if I know that one.
This one's really, really good. You want to hear it?
I do.
I think this would be good we'll just share it with your community. I think our community already knows it, but so you and I, even though this podcast going out later, we're recording right before the week of New Year's Eve, which, by the way, I don't know about you. I figure you probably feel the same way I do. I hate New Year's Eve. No, I'm sorry. I hate New Year's resolutions. I love New Year's Eve. I love New Year's too, because my 16-year-old turns, his birthday is a New Year's Day. But I don't like resolutions because I think they're crap. And I think, and the statistics show that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's 23% of all people who have a resolution, it's gone by January 10th.
Oh, I know this study. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you have a 10% success, and it's 40%. It's gone by the end of February. And I think by midsummer, it's like 80. I don't know. But I do know these stats. If you have a 10% success rate if you have an idea to do something. So it's like, I'm going to get more fit. You have a 25% success rate if you decide you're going to do it. So I have an idea. I'm going to get healthier. Okay, you know what? I'm going to do it. January 1st, I'm going to do it. Then the next one is 40% success rate if you decide the how. Okay, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm sorry, I got that backwards. If you decide when. Okay. So it's like, okay, by April 1st, I'm going to lose 30 pounds. 50% success rate if you decide the how. So like the plan. So I'm going to work out 3 times a week. I'm going to keep my macros here, get 10,000 steps in a day. I'm going to lose 30 pounds by April 1st. So then you have 50% success rate. Here's where the rubber really meets the road. If I go knock on my neighbor's door and I just say, hey, Dave, I have an idea to get healthier. Here's the how I'm going to do it. I've decided to do it, how I'm going to do it, the plan, and when. I now have a 65% success rate just by telling one person or a public thing on social media. But it goes to 95% success rate if I have a weekly appointment with somebody to check in with them or daily. 95%. So like this, and I think it's 9% of people actually follow through with their New Year's resolutions all the way through the year. So those stats are actually pretty much dead on with each other if we compare them, apples to apples kind of. The numbers do kind of add up.
Yeah, and like what we found, Larry, so just kind of bring you the evolution of the company, right? Like we had supplements, we started a podcast, we started a community, and we've kind of just been like helping dads where we can, right? We get kind of a request, hey, you guys should do this, you guys should do this. And we got like a ridiculous amount of requests for programming, for like fitness programming. So like, cool, awesome, we've got plenty of those. So like you can go on our website right now, theepicdad.com, and you can download some workout programs for free, right? Like for free, we'll tell you what to do. And guys were doing that. Some guys were getting results because they had a plan. They had made the decision. They had a how. But the thing that was missing was exactly what you said, right? Which is I need to voice it, and then I need accountability. And so we launched what we call the Epic Dad Fit program about 5 months ago. And I mean, our success rate inside that program is absolutely astronomical. And reason being is not because we have like the best plans ever built. Like you can just go on ChatGPT and be like, tell me how to lose 30 pounds, whatever. Like there's your plan, right? It's not because of the plan. Like the reason why guys are so successful is because one, we do the hard work, what we talked about, right? The Epic Dad framework to make sure that we rewire our brain for success. Because if we don't know who we are, we don't know what we value, and we don't have a clear vision on where we're going, like we're always going to feel that anxiety, that fear, that stress because we don't have a roadmap. And so that's one reason. The other reason is exactly what you said, is because of accountability and community, right? Is like we need to have a tribe of men that we're surrounded with that are holding us to a higher standard, and then we need to be held accountable to that standard. And so, we've had about 50, 60 guys run through the program since we launched it already. And I mean, our hit rate for guys reaching their goal is like 95%, like exactly what you talked about, right? I mean, there are some guys that come in and they don't do anything, and it's like, all right, well, I can't really help you, if like you're not going to do the work. But like if you do the work, like you will be successful, and it's because of that plan. It's because of accountability and community.
Amen to that, man. Well, I know you've got an apparel line, you've got a community, you've got supplements, you got all kinds of stuff. Where can guys find you, connect with you, social media, website, the whole 9 yards?
Yeah, so we really do. We run the gamut. We have everything. It's probably one of my problems, challenges, shiny object syndrome, right? We got too much going on, but we want to provide help any way we can. And so social media is probably the best place to find me, to find the business. Super simple. Just the company is just Epic Dad Co. like company, Epic Dad Co. on Instagram. Me, I'm Epic Dad Fit on Instagram. Probably the best place to learn more about us, and then it's theepicdad.com. And then lastly, actually, you're the first one to hear this, Larry. And so an announcement here is we are actually launching an Epic Dad app in January.
Nice.
So super excited about it. It's been in development for about 3 months or so. We're coming up on it being finalized, and so that will be a great place to say, hey, I'm interested in learning more. Potentially getting some workout programs. Access to habit tracking, nutrition tracking, and community. The whole 9 yards will be the Epic Dad app.
That is so cool, man. We're actually going to be launching an app this year as well. So that's great. Super exciting, man. I'm so happy for you. That's really cool. Awesome. Well, guys, we're going to have all the links in the show notes for you if you head on over to thedadedge.com/514 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/514. You can connect with Drew. We'll have all his links in the show notes. And at this point in time too, we'll probably have a link for his app in there too, which would be really, really cool. Man. So yeah. Well, Drew, thank you so much for coming on, man. This was awesome. I loved the conversation. Love the fact that, the potential we can get to. Obviously we surround ourselves with the right people. We have the right system. We have the right approach. And, this is awesome, man. I love the fact that we met, like, gosh, I think it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I think it was 2021 we met. Yep. Yeah. And here you are, 4 years later, and it's awesome. I love seeing your progress, man.
Awesome, Larry. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you having me on. And the more we can pour into becoming better fathers, the better our world's going to be, man. So it's all about it.
The more dudes, the more intentional. I heard this from Meg Meeker. If we put an intentional present dad underneath every roof in just America alone, the world would change overnight.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a quote from her. I can't steal that one. And I was like, oh man. I was like, what do you mean by that? She's like, cause she's been a pediatrician forever. And she's like, you have no idea the impact a father has. And all you have to do is put an intentional one. You don't have to put a perfect one. Yep. You don't have to put a mistake-free one.
Yeah. No such thing.
Yeah.
Just be intentional.
Just a guy who cares. And I'm like, wow. She's like, yeah, the world would change overnight. Look at the statistics of how many kids go in wrong directions in a fatherless home. And I'm like,
that's the root cause, man. That is the root cause. And it's not up for policymakers to fix, right? It is up for us to fix, as individuals.
You are so right. Like, don't wait for the government because they're not gonna save your ass. We got to be the ones that step up, and we got to be the ones that volunteer. You're like, yes, I'm doing this, right? So, love that, man. I love what you're doing.
Absolutely, brother. We'll definitely stay connected, man. Thanks for having me on, Larry.
You bet. Gentlemen, like I said, head on over to thedadedge.com/514 for this show. Connect with Drew. Go check out Epic TEDCO, all their supplements, and you might actually get to meet Drew's dog that's been barking in the background. I think he's actually cheering for you, Drew. As soon as you said something like, oh my gosh, what you said something about like the app and like we got something new coming out, and then the dog barked. I almost said, I was like,
she's very excited.
Yeah, she's cheering for you.
I'm just like this. We're on Christmas break right now, so my kids aren't in school, and so hopefully the background noise hasn't been too bad. My kids have a racetrack going upstairs.
Nice.
We cooking sourdough bread, and it's like chaos upstairs, and now chaos outside. So
sounds like my house. Like we're on Christmas break too. I'm actually
real
shocked,
stuff, man. It's real stuff.
Yeah, it is. So appreciate you, brother.
All right, brother.